Welcome everybody to another episode of the Futbol Idealists podcast. Second episode of the second season. I think it's the seventh or eighth in total. But so as I said the previous time, we wanted to do a weekly thing. So second week in a row we're doing it. So it's a good sign for now, but we'll see. We have returned. So first of all, I'm your host, Nick at NS Football, my at. And I'm gonna be your host for most of these. And then returning from the previous week, we have Raphael. So Raphael, how's it going?
Hi Nick, thanks for returning me. I'm back onto the pod, and on Twitter, Raphael Deluba0.
Yeah,
and then I'm excited to go on.
Great. And then we have a guest from the previous season who appeared a few times, have Muad. So introduce yourself, bro.
So Muad, Twitter user ramdota_en. I've not used the account for a while. I haven't done any of these podcasts for a while, but happy to be back talking about football again. So there you go. Really.
Yeah, great. So obviously a lot of the main talking points of the week, the Champions League action, some big games going on. And obviously Europa League is going on right now, and there was a Premier League game in the way. So a lot of stuff to talk about. So I was thinking, like, before we go into the games, breaking down the games specifically, I thought we could talk about obviously the big change in the format of the Champions League this year, and in I think all of the European comps was UEFA getting rid of the away goal rule, which I will admit I have a lot of mixed feelings about it, because it's weird, because I think generally the game is more fair, without the ties are more fair in a way, but also we saw how these teams will just play very defensive away from home because there's no added incentive of scoring away. So, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I was too young to remember that, but I've heard some people older than me say that UEFA originally introduced that rule because they wanted to get the away teams to get them to not sit back and give them an added incentive to score away from home. So, and I mean, we saw Real Madrid obviously were extremely defensive against PSG, clearly playing for the 0-0, almost got it. And then Liverpool, not extremely defensive, but I think more defensive than we're used to seeing them, especially against a team with generally a pretty good team, but inferior quality all over the pitch. So, I mean, personally, as I said, mixed feelings, because the games this week were not super entertaining from a neutral point of view, but at the same time, as an Arsenal fan, we've gotten knocked out of Europe on away goal so many times, and it's not just that, it's annoying, because you're gonna have a great game, it's the team, it's so a scenario, for example, I was thinking about is first leg, the home team wins 1-0, and then you go to the second leg, and now the other side just needs one goal to get it to extra time, and then they concede, and now suddenly they need 3 goals to go through. So it's it really changes the flow. And then obviously when it gets to extra time, you're going to penalties, and then one team scores and suddenly they need 2. I thought it would actually be more entertaining, but the first sample size, a bit small, it has not returned very positive. So Muad, what are your thoughts on the new non-away goal rule, I guess?
Yeah, like you said, as an Arsenal fan, for years, I hated the away goal rule so much. It must have been 5-6 times we got knocked out by Barcelona and Bayern, and I think Monaco.
And Monaco as well, yeah.
By the away goal rule, and I used to always think it was quite stupid. But as I've gotten older and watched the game a bit more and all of that, I've come to appreciate all the tactical intricacies that come with the away goal rule. Teams, playing more front foot than they normally would be as a result of it. So as you saw, just not last night, but a couple of nights ago, Real Madrid, the way they played, I think it was quite disgraceful, to be honest. They played a 4-5-1, literally just hoping that they don't make a mistake to concede or something, really. So, I mean, I generally, over time, I've come to like the idea of the away goal rule, and it being taken away kind of takes away an interesting thing away from European football in a sense, which made it different than other competitions. But again, you're going to get more penalty shootouts now, and obviously to the casual viewer, to the every day watcher of the game, penalty shootouts are the most intense part of the sport. So in a sense, it's more entertaining in that way, but I don't know. The first legs are going to be a lot more boring now, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, definitely. You're right. And I guess even the second legs, like teams that have like a slender one goal lead, they're just in the second leg, they're just going to be so defensive they're away from home.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, Rafael, what are your thoughts on the whole rule?
I mean, UEFA apparently got rid of it to make games more entertaining and get more of like a next score wins kind of a feel around games, which is weird because I think it's just going to make games less entertaining. Like what I said, Real Madrid were just as defensive as it gets against PSG, and I think we're going to see something similar in the next week, especially when you're getting teams like Atletico Madrid playing Manchester United, Juventus are playing Villarreal. You're going to see teams who know they're not going to be able to dominate the ball, and they're just going to sit back away from home and see what they can nick. So yeah, I think it's a bit weird that they scrapped the away goal rule, especially in a competition where scoring away from home is just such an incentive. But yeah, we're gonna see it more time that it's just gonna be more of a way for teams to just sit back and see games out.
Yeah, you're right. I think, in general, I think for me, I mean, again, I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out in the long term. Like, we can't really have a conclusion made of like 2 first leg games. We're gonna have to see.
Yeah.
Like, I think we're gonna have an answer on this in like, let's say 2 or 3 Champions League. Then we're gonna see. I think it's a matter of entertainment, but it's also a matter of like, to me, like, Champions League football is already like random enough in terms of like, not the best team always winning. It's kind of something that like that pisses me off a little, essentially, because I'm a firm believer that like, if you're the better team, you should get rewarded. And that's why I love, for example, the format of American sports. Like, you look at the NBA and you have 7-game series in the playoffs. Like, so you get like a very, usually you get a really, the best team wins pretty much. So in the Champions League, things are already random enough, and I think with the away goal rule, there's an added level of randomness, which just makes these games too unpredictable, which in turn actually makes them more entertaining. So it's a matter of, I think, entertainment versus fairness. Not that the away goal rule is unfair, but I think like you actually get more of a level playing field in both legs, I think, because a lot of the time it's if in the first leg like the away team scores, then in the second leg the team the other team will have to go extremely attacking, and it just again it seems like that at the end of the day it has made the games more defensive, but it's going to be very interesting. So we talked about how Madrid were defensive, so let's get into the game, because I thought it was an interesting one, but I thought that I was actually quite disappointed by the level of the two teams. Like, I didn't see 2 well-coached teams, really. I don't know if you agree, but like, I tweeted on the day that like, because I was watching on a second screen a little bit the Brighton game, and I was like, the best team that I watched on the night out of United, PSG, Madrid, and Brighton, not the best team, but like the best coached team was Brighton. They were the team with a more fluidity in the build-up and the better pressing structure. And it's I think it's a matter of like, obviously both Madrid and PSG have this whole Galactico transfer strategy where they get the best players on the pitch, and they have a balancer coach that like, his main job is like motivating the players, keeping the dressing room atmosphere good, and like picking a good starting 11. But like, when those teams go against each other, there's not much interest in terms of like tactical intricacies of the game. A lot of the time, you saw Madrid playing for the 0-0, and they really had no plan to keep the ball. So yeah, whereas when you saw Liverpool, who are a much better coached team, they did play defensive, but they did have a clear plan on how they pick their spots in terms of what time they would attack. They survived the wave of pressure from Inter, and then in the final 15 minutes they went at them and got to go. So so I don't know. So what were your thoughts on the game, and like, do you think PSG were actually that good, or was it more of a matter of Madrid just letting them have the ball?
Is okay. So as PSG, I don't think they were amazing. Like if I was to give their performance a rating, it'd probably be like a B minus or a C plus. They done an all right job. Their main problem was like just technical errors, which is quite strange considering the level of play that they have. But a lot of it probably just came down to they don't really have a striker at the moment. So certain like their play was very heavily biased towards the left hand side because there was more of a natural dynamic on that side. Whereas on the right hand side, you kind of had Messi who was more biased to the right, Di Maria also biased to the right, and Hakimi who wasn't playing quite. I'm a massive fan of Hakimi. He wasn't great that game. So yeah, but Real Madrid, they genuinely, I think they showed like the textbook definition of how not to counter attack. They played like a 4-5-1 low block. The striker was super isolated. I think that was Benzema's first game in a while, right? I'm not 100% sure, but he didn't look
Yeah,
fully
I think
fit.
he was injured before that.
Yeah. So he didn't look fully fit. He was totally isolated. There wasn't like any secondary runners and stuff. No, obviously Real Madrid's midfield is Real Madrid's midfield with Modric, Kroos, and Casemiro, but it's not like you're going to be getting like second man runs or third man runs from those guys. So it was mainly just Real Madrid like really playing into PSG's hands, letting them keep the ball with their superior technical quality. But even then, PSG just were not that great, to be honest. And you can see it with like how a lot of PSG's good moments mainly came from Mbappe, turning it on and deciding, I'm gonna get something from this game. Ended up leaving with something. So yeah, I don't know if there's really much to say, but that's all I've got to say, really, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're mostly right. I mostly agree with all you said. I mean, I think it was the one thing that was surprising to me was how even though Madrid have like in terms of like their midfield, when you have Modric and Kroos, even at their age, you know that like the one thing that they're really good at is like making good decisions with the ball and having and maintaining a good technical level. But like Madrid as a whole, just they could not retain the ball at all, and they had good personnel. I mean, yeah, Militao and Alaba are very good on the ball.
Yeah.
And then they have that midfield. Benzema usually is like very good at like holding up the play. But aside from the technical errors, I just really don't think they had much of a plan on the ball.
There weren't much options on the ball. As soon as Kroos and Modric received the ball or whatever, the only man that had any intention of receiving between the lines is Benzema, and that's it. You had Asensio and Vinicius acting like auxiliary wingbacks for the majority of the game, which is quite poor. So
and I think aside from Benzema, I think Ancelotti definitely like he really looked to Vinicius, even though he was not successful at all. He really looked at him in terms of for him to get the ball up the pitch and get the team get the ball forward and get the whole team up the pitch. But like he wasn't successful at all because he was completely isolated, first of all. And I think I mean, I'm not sure that was the sole reason for that, but I think Pochettino, I think, used Danilo Pereira, who's a third midfielder. He used him as a third center back in a way when they had the ball. And I think one of the reasons was that he wanted to get better transition coverage because Vinicius was playing on that side. And he was pretty much the only plan, I guess, that Madrid had to get the ball up. So, I mean, Rafael, do you have any thoughts on how do you think Madrid will approach the second leg, and like do you think PSG will sit back, which they as we saw like against City, they're capable of doing that in the group stage, but like how do you think the second game plays out in terms of like not the score or anything, but like how the teams will just look to approach, because it's still a very tight tie, even though PSG dominated, it's only 1-0 game and no away goal.
I mean, as long as PSG don't play a 4-5-1 again, I think they should be a lot better than what they were on Tuesday. PSG, I mean, they played really well, in my opinion. I think they played quite well, especially for a season that's been quite underperforming, even though they're 13 points clear on Ligue 1. I think they were quite well. They played quite well. They played like Mbappe and Di Maria as like split strikers and Messi in behind them, which was interesting. I think that actually kind of worked, especially as Mourad was saying, that Asensio and Vinicius were almost like auxiliary wingbacks. So getting in behind Carval and Mendy and the two centre-backs was a great idea. I think Kylian Mbappe was phenomenal. He was really good. In my opinion, he's the best player in the world. I genuinely think only Lewandowski can rival him. And yeah, he showed everything was coming through his side, and every time he got the ball, it just seemed PSG were going to create a chance and potentially score. And yeah, in terms of the second leg, if PSG play like that, I think they'll be going through quite easily. I think Real Madrid didn't threaten. I know obviously you got to take into account Benzema's injury, he felt rushed back, to be honest. And Vinicius and Asensio were not giving him too much support. But I think for Real Madrid, it's just to apply more pressure, especially onto PSG's backline. And if they can do that, it'll be an interesting second leg at the Bernabeu.
Yeah. To be honest, I think, I disagree with you in terms of, I want to push back on like the PSG's attack. I just didn't think that the dynamics were. I think PSG did well that game. They counter-pressed well. Even though Madrid did not have much of a plan to get the ball forward, they were, especially in the first half, they were incredible at like winning the ball back high up and then giving attacking again with the second wave. But I just thought the dynamics were really off in general. I think Messi drifting was mostly drifting to the left, and Mbappe was coming in. But I just don't.
I think the chance creation was quite good, to be honest. Obviously PSG Real Madrid handed them kind of majority of the ball, which helped in that. But I do think having Mbappe as like a left striker and Di Maria almost as a right second striker kind of helped in that. As we've seen, having that one striker can leave you very isolated in your play and everything kind of going around him. Whereas having them two up front and Messi in behind them meant there was a lot more movement, in my opinion. Yeah. But I do understand what you're saying. And Messi kind of drifted deep. Sometimes you see him picking the ball off Verratti. And that kind of giving, and the first half especially, that gave Real Madrid to just sit back and say, yeah, playing in front of us.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. But I just think that like what you said about the movement was good. And that's why they were so good at retaining the ball around the box, because, they had so many good technical players. But like at the end of the day, I think they really lacked any box threat at all in the end. So I think they don't really have a natural striker in their roster other than Icardi, who's not that great anymore. But I think they could have done with someone in the box, because at the end of the day, you can dominate the team as much as you want, but like if you don't pack the box with players, you're gonna have a hard time converting big chances or even creating them. And I also think that like Neymar, they missed him badly, because I think even if Neymar's not playing well, I think Messi is obviously will go in Di Maria's place, and I think that the natural dynamics will look a lot better. I mean, maybe Neymar just he dominates the ball a lot, so maybe Mbappe doesn't play that well with Neymar on the side, because we saw Mbappe, he was drifting a lot and getting on the ball, and he was incredible, as you said. It's hard to disagree in terms of him being the best in the world right now. He was incredible, and I love the fact that even though he's probably going to Madrid, you can see that when he scored, he really wanted that. He really wanted to beat them.
I also think Marco Verratti was sensational.
Yeah,
I think with Verratti, he's just he for someone so good, he's still so underrated. Like I genuinely think he's up there with the best of the best.
No, I personally think he's the best midfielder in the world, honestly.
Really?
It's a big claim. It's a big claim, but some of the performances he's consistently putting in the Champions League, and just the fact that he really doesn't have that much holes in his game, aside from probably being a little bit rash and being a little bit small. Other than that, he's at the most complete 6'8" that you can really have. So
I think if he didn't get injuries, I genuinely think he could be one of the best midfielders of all time.
It's injuries, and he doesn't seem like the most professional, but that's a conversation for another day. But
his tackling was incredible as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly. Like we all know how good he was on the ball, but like I think he was a big part of PSG being able to retain it to win it back when they lose it. Like he was, and even when for the 5 or 10 minutes that Madrid managed to keep the ball, he was instrumental in like keeping them out. Yeah, he was great. I think we should move on to Liverpool. I think to Inter-Liverpool, which in my opinion was a much more interesting game, tackle-wise. I think there was much. The level of football being played by both sides was much better, especially Inter. I mean, I was really impressed. I watched quite a bit of Inter last year with Conte, and then after they lost Hakim and Lukaku when they changed the coach, I was like, yeah, I mean, they're probably done. But to me, it looks like on the ball they're probably better than before.
Yeah. Like, I think they've gone up a level. I genuinely think on the ball they've gone up a level. Dzeko is probably Lukaku's definitely a better striker than Dzeko, but I think Dzeko's link up. I obviously, like you, I watched quite a bit of Inter last year, and Lukaku was a brilliant counter-attacking threat. But I genuinely think Dzeko's link up has developed the team further, and him and Latour are probably not as good as a partnership as Lukaku, but what they do for the overall team has been really impressive.
Yeah, definitely. But like you saw how good they were progressing the ball up the field. But when they, in terms of getting into the box, it seems like Jack and Latar were not athletic enough to get into the box. Like it really reminded me of like Arsenal working the ball up the pitch, and then like I said, just not being in the box. It's a common issue, especially when you're facing a team with like so athletic defenders like Konate and Van Dijk were incredible. They were so good. But go on.
I think there was obviously a lack of physical aggression in that, but then there's also like a little bit of fear. Like you can see the interplay somewhat second guessing themselves a lot of the time, and I think some of that might have come from the gaffer. Obviously, I rate Inzaghi very highly, but you could see that from his body language and whatnot. He was a bit of a nervous wreck throughout the whole game, and a lot of us know like a nervous gaffer means nervous players, which meant like also called. Inter's game plan was as good as it can get. It's just certain bits of execution was what basically killed them last night, really.
I also think Barella missing was big. I think Barella missing because I think in that Inter team, everyone's a little bit slower, a little bit more technical, a little bit more take their time with it. Barella's probably the one player in that team that can play to Liverpool's intensity, and it's actually probably a good thing that. And you probably could see it in the first 60 minutes when Liverpool played Ellie and Thiago. You could see Liverpool weren't playing as intense as they would like. And when you bring on someone like Henderson and Keita, who are more used to the Klopp intensity, you could see Liverpool take over the game.
Yeah, for sure. But I just loved, as like a tactics nerd that I am, I just loved how creative the build-up of Inter was. Like you could see they generally kept it was generally like a sort of a 4-4-2 shape for the most part, but like the way there were so many not 4-4-2, sorry, 4-2-4, but like the rotations were so creative. Like you could see like Brozovic dropping to the backline, then Skriniar and Bastoni turning into the fullbacks or wingbacks. Other times you could see Hakan Çalhanoğlu becoming the wingback, and I think and also the positioning of the actual wingbacks, Perisic and Dumfries was really good. It nullified the Liverpool press because it kept the fullbacks up, and obviously we all know that how aggressive Liverpool's fullback are when pressing. Like they'll go very high up, and I mean it was a very fascinating game, and it's frustrating because I was so looking forward to see how Inzaghi would approach the second leg at Anfield had he gone there with like a 0-0 or even a 1-0 deficit. That would have been so interesting. But I think it's going to be extremely difficult. Like I don't know, like they need like without the away goal rules, they need just a win by 2 to get to extra time, and even then that's going to be extremely hard. But I was personally very impressed by Inter, and I think like if you put there Barella and Lukaku and you replace Vidal and Dzeko, I think with the essentially Premier League level athleticism that those two guys have, I think it's a much different game. They got in such good positions, but people, Liverpool fans are talking about the XG or like the total shot number, and that Liverpool had more. But like you could see that Inter could have scored easily 2 or 3 goals in phases where they didn't even get a shot off. Just
like
the final pass was so.
The Chananoglu chance was big as well when he hit the
bar.
Yeah,
in the beginning of the game, that was huge.
There was another one beginning of second half. I think the ball falls right to Vidal's feet, and he doesn't know what to do. Like it hits him in like that awkward thigh spot, and then he just can't bring it down to control and finish. I feel like if Barella was in that same spot, there was 1-0 Inter in that
Barella's probably slapping it into the top corner.
Yeah, exactly.
And the way he scores his goals,
Yeah.
And Perisic was getting in behind Trent so much that he just was always messing up the final pass.
But I think Nick, like you just said, I think Trent's targeted in these European games. I have some sort of an inkling that we've seen it with Real Madrid. That I feel like they target him behind him.
Yeah, that's true. It's very interesting. It has happened in the Premier League sometimes, but I guess it's the trade-off that you get with how good he is on the ball. But even on the ball. Yeah, I mean, so just to finish, even on the ball, Liverpool's fullbacks were not really influential because they were kept so deep. So I think the game plan was excellent, but it was just a matter of execution. So I think it's fair to say that Inzaghi outcoached Klopp. I mean, even though that notion is like there are so many variables to it, and like one coach can have the perfect plan and the players are just messing up some of the passes. I think the Inter team, they went in with a perfect game plan, and the final action was so off.
It was unfortunate Brighton game or something.
Definitely. That's a good parallel there. Yeah, it was very interesting to see, and actually, I really want to watch more of this Inter team in Italy because I feel like I've been missing out. They're so interesting,
They actually I've been watching quite a bit of them this season. The derby was disappointing from a tactical standpoint because they weren't playing as intense as they were playing against Liverpool today, the other day. But they're fab. They're arguably the most entertaining and the most talented team in Italy this season. I think Napoli is the only one that could probably rival them.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame. I mean, it's gonna be a shame if they have to lose more of these players because of their financial issues. Like, they've managed to retain Barella and some other quality players like Bastoni and Skriniar and Lautaro, but like it's gonna be. I'm really hoping that they managed to keep some of those guys around. But then again, even though they lost Hakim and they found like the perfect profile to replace him in Denzel Dumfries. So it's going to be interesting to see how they progress forward. Because with a lot of these non-Premier League teams, ever since the pandemic hit, it's always been the same story. Like even if they have a good season, they just don't have the financial capacity to like compete with the Premier League clubs in Europe and like in sustained dominance even in their league. But yeah, I mean, I think it's good. Like, what are your thoughts in general of like how do you like from those first few games? How entertaining do you think this season's Champions League is going to be? Because like I mean last year was good, but like I think in general past few years the quality of teams has declined in my opinion. So, and sometimes we've seen like, for example, last year PSG and Bayern got drawn together, so like there's one great team being knocked out. So that obviously always depends on draws. Like for example, like that one year was like Tottenham and Ajax in the semifinal. Like that was pure luck in terms of like the lack of the draw. So how do you like? What? How do you foresee this season Premier League going? Not Premier League, Champions League going. Yeah.
I'm gonna sound like one of those old head or like those people that are so nostalgia driven, but I feel like the standard of European football, like the top clubs especially, is nowhere near as good as it was a few years ago. Like some of the best clubs at the moment, you got like your Real Madrids, your Bayerns. There's obvious holes in both of those teams.
Juventus,
Juventus, that goes without saying. Then like.
Barcelona, of course.
Yeah, Barcelona, of course. They're even in the Europa League now, which is insane. So is like I can't think of a clear favorite aside from Man City, but again, like it's pretty easy to discount Man City from being the favorites because they always have like the issues in Europe and whatnot. But yeah, there's like in the past you'd have like 4 teams that are like top tier that you knew they were going to be getting to like the quarters or the semis at least. At the moment, I don't know if there's the exact same level. So I feel like the games up, and there's also the whole away goal thing as well. So I don't know if it will be as entertaining as past things, but we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know though.
Yeah, again, it's always those teams have so many holes, or like not like Man City don't have many holes, but like they have that clear hole, like not having a
striker.
Yeah, and like PSG issues in midfield and tactical as well. Bayern, they don't really have a very strong midfield in terms of like defensively. It's interesting. So, Rafael, any predictions? Like, what are your thoughts on the Champions League this year?
Well, I agree with Muad. Like, so as I was saying, the quality of the teams have gone a lot worse, and I think that has seen the entertainment levels drop quite dramatically. I can't even remember the last Champions League game or last Champions League tournament I watched, and I went, "What a tournament!" Probably 2017, and when that Barca PSG game happened. But yeah, I agree with Muad that the quality of teams and the expectation of certain teams like PSG, Juventus to go on and win a tournament is not the same as it used to be.
Yeah. I think like the pandemic has to do a lot with that, as I said earlier, because like a lot of those teams, like Madrid, I think went like 3 windows without a single signing, which like that would never happen, like before the pandemic. Or Juve, obviously they've declined a lot. Bayern haven't made many major signings. They've mostly been signing some players from their league as usual. And then even teams like Dortmund have declined. Arsenal, of course, United. I think we can. I don't think anyone watched the full game, so like we can touch on a little bit about the 2 other Champions League games that went on this week. Obviously, the first one was the Bayern. No, I think the first one was Sporting Man City in Lisbon. Very routine win. To be honest, I didn't really expect the 5-0 in the first leg. I mean, City are great, but like, at the end of the day, I thought I haven't watched Sporting much this season, but I've heard some really good things about their coach, Ruben Amorim, and then they have quite a bit of quality in their side as well, with Sarabia, with Pedro Gonçalves, some other guys. But yes, I mean, any like maybe you watch highlights or something. Any thoughts on like the goals or the individual performances from the City side?
Well, I saw a little bit of it as well. Like you said, the scoreline just showed the levels in quality. Like City are probably the best team Sporting have faced in years. Like you could just see every time City had the ball, they knew what to do. Sporting just didn't. The Bernardo Silva was really good. Like his first goal especially was incredible. And like all season, Bernardo Silva's just been sensational on and off the ball. He's just, I genuinely think, like we were saying with Marco Verratti, I genuinely think he's one of the best central midfielders, especially how he's transitioned on the Pep from an inverted winger off the right to a probably more box to box or playmaker. I genuinely think he's one of the best number 8s in world football.
Yeah, I think in a way he's sort of similar to Verratti, because like he used to be like a proper playmaker, but now I think he's more transitioned to a player who like he's very intense off the ball, just like a Verratti or a Modric, and on the ball his main function is to like just keep the ball, and like there's not many. But I think there was actually like a phase of play where City had the ball on the right, and I think it was De Bruyne who was just open in the middle, and it was a hard pass. It was a very demanding pass to play, but instead of him just clipping it to there, he just wriggled out like 2-3 players and then cut it back, and that just showed there like he's just usually a step or two ahead of his opponents. And
he's phenomenal to watch. I actually love watching him as a United fan. I think he's just so good.
Yeah, he's so good to watch. Like I went to a Brighton City game earlier in the year and was like, of so many, like Grealish, Sterling, Mahrez, De Bruyne, all those guys were playing. But like the one that Phil Foden, the one that I left the stadium was like, wow, that was a privilege to watch. Was Bernardo. He's so nice to watch in terms of like keeping the ball and dribbling past players. Just a very good player. And then the other game of the week was Bayern playing away at Salzburg, and like I'm not sure. Like I didn't watch much, but like I thought that like Bayern were going into the Champions League really strong this year, and I saw that they drew Salzburg. And I was like, well, yeah, that's like a 5-0. But Salzburg proved very competitive. They always have, obviously they're a part of the Red Bull program, and they always have some very nice players from all over. Like they have some Americans, some Africans, like some South Americans. They always steal players from like the other from like the New York team, or there's a Red Bull team in Africa, I think, and one in Brazil. Very interesting project. And I think it's just getting that big result against Bayern. I mean, they're probably going to get thrashed in the second leg, to be honest, but like even that they went 90 minutes without conceding against Bayern, that was quality. So yeah, I think we can also. I mean, Brighton United hosted Brighton in an interesting game. We can talk about that a little as well, because I thought it was obviously I didn't watch much. I had it playing on the second screen while watching the PSG game. But, like I managed to catch some of it because like the PSG-Madrid game was so boring. So my eyes were drifting to the other game, and as I said, I didn't watch all of it, but like I heard, especially in the first half, I heard that like Brighton was really, really good, and but it's the same story with them. They play well. The tactical plan is great, but they always end up, converting their chances, and at times they'll get a red card. They sort of capitulated, they conceded, and then a minute later they get a red card. Used dunk, but even after the red card, which was most of the game that I watched was after the red card. But even after the red card, they were pretty decent at keeping the ball, and actually created a couple of chances. They could have easily got some out of the game, which is interesting because like you see other teams like Arsenal who had a lot of red cards recently. Like they referred to a very defensive plan after they get it, but like Brighton are a brave team, and I'm really looking forward for them to add some attacking quality. Like they're going to be a proper force next season because they've added some interesting players. They just signed Dennis Undav, who's had an incredible story in Belgium, was the player of the year there, and leading the newly promoted side to first place. And they also have Abdallah Sima.
His stat line is incredible.
Yeah, I think he has 29 goal assists and 27 starts, something like that. For a newly promoted team, which is pretty crazy. And the other interesting attacking player they signed was Abdallah Sima, who Arsenal fans are familiar with him from the Slavia Prague tie last year. He is actually out on loan with Stoke. Hasn't played much, but from what I remember, he's a really talented player. He's going to come back next season, and I'm really looking forward to watch this Brighton team. United, I think, had a lot of their usual problems, and Rafael, you're a United fan. Obviously, I think it's fair to say there has been a bit of improvement recently, like past few games. Even though two of them were draws, I think at least United have started very well those games. But we can talk about the Southampton game as well. I mean, if Burnley and Southampton, they were great in the first half, but then they just fall. It sort of reminds me of Arteta started Arsenal, where we had some great first half performances, and then after 55 or 60 minutes, these players are not used to pressing and retaining the ball of game, so they tire out, and then the other team goes for it, and Brighton almost. I think if they hadn't got the red card, they probably could have got some of the game, and then obviously Burnley and Southampton did. So, Rafa, what do you think? Going into the rest of the season. Obviously, I think United, someone pointed it out, someone had like an XG graph, which they basically said that United have the hardest schedule remaining in the league. So, it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out and if they can actually play good football for 90 minutes. So What do you think? What are your feelings for this side
Yeah,
going into the
I
last few
completely
games?
agree with you in terms of the last few performances I think they've improved. They've improved definitely. Like you said, it reminds you a bit of Arteta's time where players are getting used to the pressing system, they're getting used to the new style of play, and you can see kind of why the trend of United start quick in the first half and then in the second half they tire out and the performance levels drop. Against Brighton, it was much better. It felt more. The first half felt more reserved, like it was an instruction to don't go as hard as in the first half, so you can reserve some of that energy in the second. And you could see, especially when the likes of Paul Pogba came on, United looked a lot more threatening. Yeah, I do agree in that Burnley and Southampton game showed some of our weaker areas, like how we defend in transitions. Like Ralph Hasenhuttl said something after the game where he was basically going, United don't work hard enough. Like, it's no secret. And under Ragnick has said before, it's a long-term kind of plan to his system. So it's not a short-term fix. It's not going to be something you see overnight. And you can see that at clubs like Arsenal, where Arteta still implementing to this day, after like what, 2.5 seasons, 3 seasons in the job now. So I think Manchester United will get top four. I think Manchester United will start to, like you said, cash in on that XG. But it's gonna be an interesting next couple of months, because in March we've got City and Tottenham back to back with Aleti in the middle. So it's going to be interesting how we play in the games, in them bigger games against teams that are not going to be afraid to put the pressure on Manchester United for the full 90 minutes, and teams are not going to be afraid to kind of almost go, let's see what you've got. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you like like, I think ever since the Aston Villa game, I think Ragnick has changed his system from the 4-3-3 to a 4-3-3 with McTominay as number 6 usually, and Fred and Bruno as the 8s. But of course, Pogba did start 2 games in which he looked fantastic. So what do you think about the new midfield combination? Because like, we can all agree that like United's main issue is like the midfield.
Yeah.
Do you think? I think it's safe to say that it has improved, but do you think this is like a long-term solution with playing Pogba and Bruno together, or maybe you prefer Fred there and McTominay as a 6?
I guess that's the problem, isn't it? Nothing at Manchester United is long-term. Like, everything's short-term. Pogba will possibly, definitely leave in the summer. You've got people like McTominay and Fred who many people don't believe are good enough as players, let alone as defensive midfielders or certain type of midfielders. And Bruno, well, the 4-2-2 never worked, and I think it never worked because it's something that it takes time to implement. And in the position and situation Ragnick's in, he doesn't have time, so he had to go back to something where it was similar to what the players have been coached under Oli in a 4-3-3 / a 4-2-3-1, because sometimes, as we've seen in the Southampton game, definitely that Bruno has a tendency to just almost play as a second striker and leave the midfield. So in the long term, it depends who you bring in. If you bring a Pochettino in, he's probably going to favor a 4-2-3-1 like he did at Spurs. If you bring a Ten Hag in, he's definitely going to favor a 4-3-3. So it just depends what manager you bring in and whether he rates the players in the current team. I also think something that has helped United in recent weeks has been the improvement in Diogo Dalot and Luke Shaw's kind of progression game. I think Luke Shaw is our most progressive outlet. Like, every time he picks up the ball, he just drives into midfield. It's really good. And Diogo Dalot has been a lot more. He's been a lot more aware of his surroundings, and every time when he picks up the ball, he's able to realize it's not a step over and then drive. You can be able to play a 1-2, sit back and evaluate the situation you're in. So I think the fullbacks have definitely been important to how we've played in recent weeks. And yeah, in terms of how we're gonna look in the long term, I just don't know, to be honest. I couldn't tell you. It is very, very mixed at Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean, it's also obviously that you mentioned how you don't know who's going to be the coach next year, which I think was also the main reason why United didn't sign a midfielder in January. Like you don't know, like obviously when you sign certain midfield profiles, it changes. They're always suited to a certain system or a certain role. And like if you sign like a lone six type, maybe you switch to a double pivot next season, and it's different. So I think, in a sense, it was good that they kept their transfer plans open, but at the same time, you have a top four battle, and I mean, it also depends like how. Yeah, it depends on how badly they want it as well.
Yeah, like you were saying, it's left us kind of vulnerable in the top four battle by not signing anyone in the. I feel like when, especially against Burnley, I looked onto our bench and I was like, our bench is quite weak. It's a lot weaker than it was a couple of weeks ago. It's because you let the like of Anthony Martial and Donny van de Beek go, who weren't playing before, but players who, when you looked onto the bench, you were like, okay, maybe if they came on, they could do something. Now you look onto the bench and you've got the likes of Jesse Lingard and Hannibal Mejri, who's probably kicked 30 minutes of senior football in his career. It's not very inspiring. And yeah, like you said, it's gonna be interesting in how we approach the top four battle, because we are definitely going to be on a very strict stand 11. Probably going to be seeing the same players over and over again for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. And then I think we covered everything with United. It's the things are not really progressing. I mean,
I just have one thing to say, really. Like United are starting to obviously play better. They're starting to create more in volume and that. But I feel like the main issue is that the teams that you'd want to be creating a volume against are the teams that you probably wanted to beat now. And then now that you've got the tougher games coming up, things like defensive transitioning, obviously the build up from your own back is still not great. I mean, it's not going to be great until there's like personal changes and whatnot, in fairness. So I feel like United was starting to look better, but the problem is it might be too little too late, because now the things that they were improving upon aren't as important as what they needed to be good at when they faced the Man Cities and the other teams that they're playing against. So we'll just see, I suppose. But
yeah, I mean, they still have Leeds and Watford before the tough games.
Okay, yeah, fair
so
enough.
They're probably they have a little more time to get better before that, to like create momentum, because yes, they've been playing better, but the reality of the situation is that they dropped 4 points to teams that they should be beating comfortably in Burnley and Southampton. So let's see how they do. I mean, Leeds, obviously, it's a good game. They always smash them because of the way Leeds defend with a man marking. Yeah, United are really suited to play against that way. But yeah, and then
team with technical quality should be smashing Leeds, to be honest.
Definitely. So yeah, I mean, we can move on to Arsenal. Obviously, me and Mara are Arsenal fans, and a lot of stuff going on there. A lot of we haven't played much recently, which is weird. Because weird. It's weird. Like, it was clear against Wolves, even though we played well, it was clear that the team was sluggish. Like, the technical levels were low, and the players lacked energy, because like you lose a lot of momentum. And even before that, we didn't play many Premier League games. Even before the Wolves game,
this calendar year we hadn't played 3 games or so.
3 games, City, Burnley, and Wolves. It's pretty mad. And and now I think with Arsenal, obviously we're another team, just like with United. We really badly want top 4, and we have a favorable run going for us in the next few games. But it puts a lot of pressure on the young players to perform. We obviously have Brentford on the weekend, who have looked terrible lately, absolutely terrible. So I think this is a good game for us to
potentially Christian Eriksen debut, I think, as well.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting to see if he plays and how long he plays. That's going to be interesting. And I hope we do well. It's a game. I'm going to. So I don't want to travel to London for. I mean, Burnley was a horrible experience, to be honest. I don't want the same to happen. And then we have Wolves again. which is going to be interesting because it seems like Wolves are going to be coming out for blood. There were all these
The way they were
comments
speaking
going on about the celebrations and all that. You obviously have Martinelli coming back to that game. He's going to be very, very up. A lot of interesting games. Like you feel with that, you feel with Arsenal. They have if they win their next 3 or 4 games, they're like in great shape.
Yeah, it's just I feel like the next 2 games are going to be very, very mental based. As in, we should be beating Brentford, but because they're such a big physical team and all of that, and they're probably going to be sitting down, it's going to take a lot of mental patience, working the block, breaking it down, and all of that stuff. And then obviously Wolves is another very big team that are going to probably, they pressed Tottenham pretty highly, but I remember when we played them, they played like this really tough, narrow mid block that's kind of hard to break down. So it was 2 very mentally taxing games for especially the more creative players that we've got. Guys like Odegaard and Smith Rowe are most likely going to be playing and stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah. But as I was saying, you're right. As I was saying, you have these next few games. I think it's so let me get right. I think it's Brentford, Wolves. Then I think it's Watford away. I'm pretty sure, not entirely sure, but I think it's Watford away, which is another very winnable game. Not going to be easy though. And then you have Leicester home, Villa away. You have this sort of tough but winnable games, and I think you have to pick up a lot of points here because obviously United have like, as I said, statistically they have the worst schedule remaining out of any team in the league, and certainly out of any team in the top 4 race. And after the next 2 easy games, you're going to have very tough ones. Spurs are on a downward spiral completely.
They're capitulating.
They're collapsing. Like they have 3 straight losses, which I don't know, the first time it's happened to a Conte side.
Conte's interviews,
his comments
very interesting. Yeah.
I feel like he's setting himself up for a severance package, it seems.
It was predictable though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
No, because that's the thing. Because obviously, as you know, I've always rated Antonio Conte really highly. He's one of the first managers.
Yeah, he's world class. Yeah.
But the Tottenham situation is so strange. It's genuinely so strange that it can't be fixed soonish. And then the guy that they brought in, Fabio Paratici, if anyone paid attention to Italian football, Juventus the last few years, would know. I don't think this guy's
con man. He's a con man.
Yeah, you don't want to give the keys to this guy because he just spent January, gotten a team of players that they weren't using at the time, which is fair enough. But replaced it by doing Juventus a couple of favors, giving them a couple of FFP paychecks and whatnot.
Yeah, he basically gave them the cash to pay Vlahovic, essentially.
Yeah, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, which it's funny. Yeah,
it's a very toxic situation over there. But
it feels like there's
go on.
Yeah, no, I was saying with Paratici, it feels like the sole reason that they got him in the summer was to get Conte.
Yeah.
But then obviously Conte rejects them. They get Nuno. It goes very wrong. They get Conte, so it's the perfect marriage. They have Paratici on top of Conte, then they have and reports about a big spending spree in January, and then January passes, and then you have Conte complaining about the dealings that the guy that was brought in to attract Conte made. It doesn't seem like a great situation. And then even then there's this whole, people have stopped talking about it because there hasn't been any reportings on it, but there's still the elephant in the room, Harry Kane. He was very adamant about leaving. We haven't heard much since, but I wouldn't be at all surprised. Do you not think that Kane will want to stay if they don't make top 4? I really doubt it.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he signed a new contract, to be honest.
Really?
I wouldn't be surprised. I genuinely, what is he, 28 now? I don't think City are gonna want to go through that whole thing, that whole saga again in the summer. So I can't see City. I think the only club stupid enough to go for a 28-year-old with injury problems is Manchester United. And if we get Pochettino, I think it's just more an incentive, really.
Yeah. But the thing about Harry Kane is there's so much logical reasons for him to leave. In every way, shape, or form. And I think even he knows this at this point, but it's just the fact that he just doesn't, in his heart, probably doesn't want to. He doesn't have it in him to, actually push through and, actually force a move. Because if he actually did, he wouldn't be at Tottenham right now.
Exactly.
Realistically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And then the whole thing about Conte, you know, because I mean, I'm not entirely objective because I'm an Arsenal fan, but I didn't think Conte was a great appointment for them because it's not about him. It's not about his coaching ability, which is clearly like top 5, top 10. He's among the very best in the world, right? But the problem is, it's just not really the right time, right? It's just not. And with Kane wanting to leave, and you know, I'm not sure how right these things are, but there have been reportings that like Tottenham are very, very in debt, so they're not going to have much money
after the stadium.
They built a stadium in a global pandemic, so like the financial situation can't be great at the moment. Like it doesn't take an accountant to tell you that.
Yeah, and traditionally they're not a club that spends huge, right? They're a club that operates on like a sustainable model, like Arsenal before the pandemic. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with them. Like personally, I wouldn't be surprised if Conte walked before the season ended. I mean, actually, he wouldn't walk. I think he would force the sacking. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens because like if you look, let's go back to like after the Arsenal-Burnley game, and Tottenham at that point, I think they beat someone with like I think it was the Southampton or the Leicester game where they scored the 2 goals in the final minute. That was like 3 weeks ago, right? They were the absolute favorite for top 4, right? And now you fast forward 3 weeks and it's all gone horribly wrong. You know, and it's never a good sign where your coach goes out to Italian TV and like starts complaining about the level of the club and like. I mean, he knew what he was walking into. Let's be real.
You know what it is.
I don't think it's a great look for him.
No, it's not. It's not. I'll tell you one thing. There's 2 things about Antonio Conte. Is that first off, I don't think he's very self-aware of his public image because a lot of times when he's throwing a tantrum, he comes off as like a bit childish. And secondly, like I think part of me thinks that he took this job because he must have been a bit bored or something. Because for you to reject the team and then 2 months later, literally nothing changes. Nothing changes in those 2 months.
He wanted the United job.
Yeah.
Obviously, United said, no, we're not going to hire you because we're not smart enough. And then he was like, okay, because the rumors were saying like he was desperate to get back into management, like desperate. And he was very desperate because he took Tottenham. And now you can see he's not happy. And I think he looked at the stadium and went, they just built like a multi-million like stadium, and he was probably thinking, oh, I'll probably get that money to go get signings. And then comes January and realizes, oh wait, Tottenham don't actually do that.
Because he did sign an 18-month contract for a reason.
Like that's the thing. That's the thing. That was a giveaway. That was a dead giveaway when he signed an 18-month contract. It wasn't, and obviously. They're not at the level to like compete for the league title this year or next year. So it didn't really make much sense in terms of like, him being a great coach for them because like Conte is the sort of coach that you get in when you have a team that is good enough to compete. Like Inter brought him in to take the next step to get the Scudetto of Juve, and obviously Chelsea. Chelsea had an incredible squad, and they fell out with Mourinho. They already had a championship squad in place. Premier League winning squad, not championship. Sounded weird, but you get what I mean. And he was there, and he took them over and won immediately. Tottenham was not that situation at all, and it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. They're playing Man City away next. That's tough. That's tough.
To be fair, they have a good record against City. They have a good record.
Yeah, they have an incredible record.
But there's a lot of averages at this point because like the XG in all of those games were so like heavily favored to City. They can't keep beating City like this. It can't. It's not feasible. I don't know.
I mean, as an Arsenal fan, I'm gonna be happy if one team drops out of the race. It's gonna be. It's gonna be good.
I also think West Ham. I think West Ham in the next coming weeks are gonna slowly drop off.
They have Europe as well.
Europe League is difficult. They don't have the deepest squad either. So
I mean, they have like one center forward. They don't really have many wingers. They have injuries at the back. It's a tough situation for them. In midfield. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was what I was about to say. Like in midfield, they have Suchek and Rice, and then nothing else. Like what happens when one of them gets hurt? I think it's a good time for like some of the lower teams to make a good run for like towards top 8. Like Villa have a good chance, I think, to make a strong run.
Southampton
they look good. Southampton have looked very good. Wolves, obviously, like I mean, Wolves. Like, I don't know if you have realized, but like Wolves, if they had beaten Arsenal, they'd be like right in the top 4 battle.
Yeah,
which is pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean, they would have gone above Arsenal. I was looking at the table during the game. I was like, what? It's so close. And obviously they have another chance to get close to the race again. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, Leicester look pretty dead right now, to be honest. I mean, it's not. I don't think at this point it's quality. Like they have such a mental block right now. Like they've given up. Like the Spurs game was ridiculous, and then they also.
West Ham as well.
Last West Ham, and both games were at home, and they gave up like, and it was like stupid goals all around. It wasn't like great quality. It was like poor defending. For like the winning goal by Bergwijn was ridiculous.
The Tielemans error was unheard of.
Tielemans drop off has been quite drastic in these last couple of months.
And then he's pretty much announced that he's leaving, like reportedly.
Yeah. Would you guys take him at Arsenal?
It's an interesting one. I mean, I don't think anyone like. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the player.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
On ball, he's obviously topping it. But for me personally, like, my style of midfielder, I obviously need someone that can throw their weight around and actually can see their the defensive positioning and stuff is actually there, innit? Tielemans off ball, shocking. I mean, it could be coaching to him, but then you also got to factor in the guy's not that fast. He's not got that much.
Yeah, I remember in lockdown. I seen some crazy stat that Diddy was doing the most. He was covering the most ground, and I was thinking, and then you just realize and you go, oh, he had lockdown Tielemans in front of him.
Yeah,
the amount of defending he must have had to do, it must have been crazy.
There's obviously that famous clip of Declan Rice ripping right through the
So to answer your question, Rafa, I think for me in our current state, I wouldn't take him because we just badly need defensive midfielders, right? Because we're not. For whatever reason, even though we have the quality, we just can't control the ball in games. It's a mental thing for me, not a tactical or a technical thing. But if we get to the end of the season and we suddenly start dominating the ball, like you can go to like a more of a city model with, and that like Tielemans would be great if we had the ball like 60% or 65% of the time, because you don't have to defend much, but like. Right now, we're a bit of a second ball team, if you think about it. We don't control the ball much. Like you go to Wolves. I mean, obviously there was the red card and everything, but Wolves are not really a team that controls the ball, and we couldn't do it ourselves. So I think if we get to a level where we're like good enough to control the ball against like 14 or 15 teams in the league, then Tielemans would be great because he would be cheap as well.
And I think that's the level that Tete wants to take you to.
Definitely, but it's not there yet, so I'm not sure. It all depends on how we're looking at the summer. But I think it's a signing that could. Definitely. But I think Tielemans is a signing that could definitely happen. I could see that happening.
Because the rationale behind it makes sense, but I don't know. It's not my style of midfield, so I can't heavily back it.
Yeah, same. Like I've openly not been a fan of the player, but like I think in the right situation, like if you put him at City instead of Gundogan, he would be great. Like there's no doubt about it. But it's also about whether he has some very, very clear deficiencies, which are hard to look past. But at the same time, he has such good strengths, which that you have to put. It's sort of a similar thing with Xhaka, because he has very clear strengths and very clear weaknesses, but he's not the perfect option for what Arsenal try to do. So I don't want another Xhaka situation. I mean, completely different players, but I don't want another Xhaka situation. I want someone who's going to be reliable in any type of game and any type of system. I think we've covered most of the stuff. We're obviously going to be back next week. I mean, not sure if we're going to be the exact same 3, but we're going to have some people. We're going to give you contact next week as well. A lot of Premier League games going on. more Champions League as well. It's going to be we're going to have a lot to talk about next week. So yeah, so if you made it to the end, so thanks for watching or listening, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify. Please go and follow us on Twitter at Futbol Idealists. Check out the website. We're going to have some more articles coming soon. And I've been your host, Nick. Thanks to Muad and Rafael for being here. We had a very good time and a great discussion. So yeah, go also follow those guys on Twitter as well. We'll see you next week. So thanks for watching, guys.